If you grew up in the arcade, you don't just remember the games. You remember the feeling. The moment you stepped through those doors, you were hit by a wall of sensory overload. The metallic chime of a coin sliding in a slot, the neon glow, the scent of warm electronics, and that unmistakable symphony of bleeps, bloops, and clanging pinball bells. But amidst the sea of joysticks and buttons, there was always one corner of the room that felt different. It was a place where cabinets grew larger, the plastic felt heavier, and the screen seemed to burn just a little brighter. In that corner, you weren't just playing a game, you were stepping through the glass. Take Terminator 2 Judgment Day. It wasn't just a movie tie-in, it was a high-octane masterpiece. It forced you to manage the heat of a vibrating pulse rifle, while the world on screen dissolved into a frenzy of chrome and fire. It was event gaming before that was even a term. Then there's Lethal Enforcers. By ditching pixels for digitized actors, it brought a gritty, ripped-from-the-headlines realism to the arcade. It made every trigger pull feel high stakes, demanding a level of focus that a standard joystick can never replace. And of course, Operation Wolf, a relentless scrolling masterpiece in tension. It proved that you didn't need a D-pad to have a deep tactical experience. These were the AAA blockbusters of their era. We're not just talking about light gun classics. These games may have defined a genre, but they can stand toe-to-toe with any other arcade classic you can name. The magic eventually followed us home. From the iconic click of the NES Zapper and the Sega Light Phaser, to the arcade-accurate ports on the Saturn, PlayStation, and Dreamcast. The light gun was a staple of the living room. But then the world changed. CRT televisions disappeared. Flat screens moved in. And the technology that powered our favorite light guns simply couldn't keep up. Overnight, one of the most immersive ways to play didn't just go out of style, it went dark. But now, the light is finally burning brighter than ever. With a new wave of hardware, the light gun is officially back. The truth is, these games never stopped being fun. The technology just moved on without them. We've moved past the glass tube era and into a world of camera tracking and high-speed infrared. Whether you treated yourself on Black Friday or Santa left you one under the tree, we're here to help. With LaunchBox, you'll be playing those MAME classics in no time. We're doing this natively, which means no third-party software and no messy configuration loop. Just a clean professional setup that puts the focus back where it belongs, on the game. Before we jump right into importing our MAME ROMs, there are a few prerequisites you'll want to handle first. First, make sure your light gun is connected and configured according to the manufacturer's instructions. For this video, I'll be using my RS3 Reapers, but the general setup process is very similar across most modern light guns. Second, and this is a big one, make sure your gun is properly calibrated. You'll need to use the specific configuration or calibration software for your device to ensure everything is dead on. This step is critical. Even a minor calibration issue now can throw everything off once you're in a game. I have a fresh install of LaunchBox for Windows here. Let's get our MAME library imported. There are two ways we can kick this off. From the Add Games pop-up, simply select Import MAME Arcade Games Full Set. Or you can head up to the Tools menu and select Import MAME Arcade Full Set. Both options will lead you directly to the Import MAME Arcade Full Set wizard, which is where the real magic happens. LaunchBox wants to know where we're going to be importing our MAME ROMs. Personally, I like to import my MAME ROMs under the MAME platform. Since I'll eventually be adding other arcade emulators like Hypsia Singe or TechnoParrot, especially for this light gun build, I find it much cleaner to keep them all nestled under the arcade platform category. This keeps your library organized and ready to grow as you add more systems down the line. But in true LaunchBox customizable fashion, you can name this whatever you want. Let's browse for our MAME ROMs. I'm importing version 0.284 non-merged. Now, before we hit next, we need to talk about the ROMs themselves. If you ever look for MAME games, you've probably seen terms like merged, split, and non-merged thrown around. It's easily the most confusing part of arcade emulation. I highly recommend using a non-merged ROM set. Here's why. In a standard split or merge set, games share files. If you want to play a clone, like a specific regional version of Lethal Enforcers, it might rely on a parent file to actually run. If you don't have that parent file, the game won't boot. A non-merge set removes all that guesswork. Each zip file is 100% self-contained. It includes the game, the parent files, and the BIOS files all in one package. It takes up more hard drive space, but it means you can move, copy, or pick and choose individual games without ever worrying about a missing files error. If you're not worried about space and want the flexibility, the non-merge set is the way to go. That flexibility does come with a price. A non-merge set is almost 44,000 files and 150 gigabytes. Let's click Next. We'll have LaunchBox automatically install and configure MAME. Competing against the community really adds an extra element to playing these retro games. Of course, I'll enable LaunchBox high scores. Let's click Next. Let's download the metadata. Again, this option's all up to you, but I want this build to be as pretty as possible. I'm going to check all. And speaking of pretty, here you can log into your Emu Movies account. If you don't have one, you should probably get one. I'm going to log in, check all, and click Next. Most arcade games are in a 4:3 aspect ratio. If you're playing on a modern display, most likely you're 16:9. The bezel will fill out the display and make it look nice. Here you can filter out your games, whether, how, and even if you want to import clones, the region to prioritize, what game types you want to skip. Plenty of options here, but I'm going to accept the defaults. Some more options here. We can filter by controller support and whether or not we want LaunchBox to create MAME playlists. Let's leave the defaults and click Next. LaunchBox is going to parse the full MAME set to find the games to import. LaunchBox is ready to import 2,933 ROMs. Let's click Finish to start the import. This import is going to take a little bit, so instead of staring at a progress bar, here's a quick overview of the steps we'll be walking through. For light guns, the key is making sure MAME sees each gun as its own input device, and that pesky Windows is mapping them correctly. First, we're going to set up a RetroShooter mapping file so player 1 and player 2 always show up consistently. Same IDs, same order, every time you launch. This is where the PID, or product identifier, values matter. Once that file is in place, we'll make some changes to the MAME.ini file, and then we'll jump into a light gun game. Open MAME's internal input menu, and bind the basics, X, Y, trigger, reload, and start. After that, you can save those controls globally or per game if you want different layouts. We'll take this slow, and we'll go step by step. MAME has completed the import, but before we make any changes in LaunchBox, let's head to the MAME installation folder. So my MAME is located in my LaunchBox emulators MAME 0.284 folder. Now let's open the CTRLR folder, which is short for controller. Create a new text file, name it retroshooter.cfg. Now let's open it. Now paste in the config I'm putting in the video description, and we'll come back and fill in one important piece in a second. Let's save it and edit our MAME.ini file. The MAME.ini file is located in the root of the MAME installation directory, so let's go back one level. Let's right-click on the MAME.ini file and select Edit. We want to scroll down to the Core Input Options section. Inside the Core Input Options section of MAME.ini, you'll see an option called Controller, abbreviated to CTRLR. This setting tells MAME to load an additional controller configuration file when it starts. By default, this option is empty, which means MAME only uses its built-in input mappings. When we set the controller option to RetroShooter, MAME will automatically load our file named retroshooter.cfg from the controller directory. Let's set light gun to 1. Let's set multi-mouse to 1. Let's head down to the core input automatic enable options. Let's set AD stick device to mouse. Let's set light gun device to mouse. Let's set positional device to mouse and mouse device to mouse. Let's save our MAME.ini and head back into LaunchBox. Before we launch a game, now's a good time to make sure our gun is in mouse mode. Please refer to your product documentation. For the Reapers, we're going to hold down the start button, move the joystick to the right, and if the light turns green, we're in mouse mode. If the light turns yellow, you're in joystick mode. Just repeat the process to put it in mouse mode. Now that it's set, let's jump into a game. Let's click Arcade. Let's click Light Gun Games. Now let's right-click on any of the light gun games and select Open MAME. This will launch the MAME.exe file. Let's head to General Settings and Input Devices. Now let's scroll down to the light gun section. You might see multiple entries that say something like HID compliant mouse. That's normal. Click the first HID device. When it opens, wave your gun around. If you see the X and Y values moving, you found the correct device. If not, just head back and select another one. But in our case, we found it. Let's double-click Copy Device ID. Now minimize MAME and LaunchBox, and let's go back to our RetroShooter config file. Let's paste the device ID. And here's the key point. Most of the time, you only need the PID. So in this case, the gun's PID is 5750. Let's replace the 4 X's for player 1 gun and type in the correct PID. Now that we set the PID for the player 1 gun, let's repeat the steps for player 2. Let's copy the device ID. Let's paste it into our file and extract that PID number. Player 2's gun's PID is 5751. Let's delete the lines we added. Let's hit File, Save. By default, MAME doesn't permanently assign controllers to a fixed device number. One time your light gun might show up as device 1, and the next time you launch MAME, it could appear as device 3 or 4. That's because MAME assigns controllers based on the order they're detected when the system starts. If you unplug a USB device, change ports, add a hub, use Bluetooth, or even just reboot your PC, that detection order can change. When it does, your controls can break or map incorrectly. To fix this, MAME gives us a way to force consistency by mapping a controller using its unique hardware identifier, such as the product ID. Essentially, we're telling MAME that this exact physical device should always be treated the same way, no matter what order it's detected in. Let's close out of the file. Let's close out of MAME. And let's head back into LaunchBox. Let's go ahead and start a game so we can configure the light gun inputs. Let's press the Tab key to open the in-game configuration menu. From there, select Input Settings, then Input Assignments General. These are the global controller mappings that apply across all games. Let's select Player 1 controls. This menu includes every possible control for Player 1. Since our guns are running in mouse mode, we're going to focus on the mouse 1 inputs. Player 1 button 1 is mapped to mouse 1 button 1. That's a left mouse click, which corresponds to the trigger on our Reapers. Player 1 button 2 is mapped to mouse 1 button 3. That's a right mouse click. That lines up with the button next to the trigger on the Reapers. Player 1 button 3 is mapped to mouse 1 button 2, which is a middle mouse button. That matches the button under the grip. Let's scroll down for more. Start is mapped to the number 1 key, and select or coin is mapped to the number 5 key. Let's scroll down for the light gun X and Y settings. If you remember from 5th grade algebra, the x-axis represents left and right movement, and the y-axis represents up and down. Finally, light gun X analog is set to gun 1 X, left and right, and light gun Y analog is set to gun 1 Y, up and down. So everything is already configured correctly. We don't need to change a thing. Now let's go back and check input assignments this system, so we can see the game-specific controls. There's nothing too unusual with Area 51. The controls look to be pretty standard. It looks like this game only uses one button, the trigger, for shooting. This is also an off-screen reload game, so firing outside of the screen will handle reloading. The light gun X and Y settings are correct. The player 1 start and coin are mapped properly as well. Just remember, if you plan on playing 2-player games, make sure your player 2 controls are configured correctly too. Now finally, we can start playing. Insert credits works. Player 1 start works. And more importantly, the trigger works. While you're watching this, there's something important to understand about games like Area 51. They weren't designed to be fair, they were designed to be profitable. Light gun games are some of the biggest earners in the arcades, largely because of how unforgiving they were. Enemies rush the screen, attacks come from multiple directions, and if your accuracy slips, even a little, your health disappears fast. The difficulty wasn't accidental. These games were built to keep play sessions short. Miss a few shots, take a few hits, and you're already reaching for another credit. And because they're so fast and intense, players will always convince they could do better the next run. Just one more credit. Area 51 is the perfect example of that design. Enemies spawn constantly, the screen is always busy, and the game never really gives you a chance to slow down. It's chaotic by design. And that chaos is exactly what made those cabinets so profitable. But the challenge is also why people love them. They felt urgent, they felt physical, and when you finally made it a little further than last time, it felt earned. The balance between frustration and excitement is what kept players feeding these machines coin after coin. And today, with modern light gun setups, you finally get to experience these games without worrying about how many credits you got left. Just pure, unapologetic arcade chaos. Let's switch to a different game that needs to be handled a little differently. Next up, Carnival. This is a good example of a game that doesn't rely only on MAME settings. You'll need to calibrate the guns inside the game itself using the service menu. Before we do that, let's hit our tab key, input settings, and then input assignments this system. Let's quickly run through the controls. Player 1 trigger is mapped to the trigger, and player 1 pump or reload is mapped to the button to the right of the trigger. So in this game, you'll need to press a button to reload, unlike Area 51, which used off-screen reload. The X and Y analog axis is set correctly. Player 1 start is correct, and coin 1 is mapped properly as well. Let's exit and add some credits. Looks like everything is working. Let's head to the service menu by pressing F2 to calibrate our guns. You'll use the volume up and volume down keys to move up and down, which are your plus and minus keys. The test key is your F2 key, and you use the coin key to exit. Let's head down to gun calibration. Left gun would be our player 1 gun. We're just going to aim and shoot at the X's. Once finished, that green X should line up in the middle of your crosshair. Let's do the same for player 2. Now, if the X doesn't line up, just calibrate it again. Let's head to exit. And let's play. Carnival is one of those arcade games that immediately makes its identity clear. Released by Midway in 1998, Carnival throws you into a twisted, haunted carnival run by the undead ringmaster Ludwig von Tokentaker. Ironic. This isn't realism or military combat. This is loud, grotesque, over-the-top chaos, exactly the way late 90s arcades loved it. Carnival arrived at the tail end of the classic arcade light gun era. By the late 90s, arcades were already shifting towards a more cinematic experience. But Carnival still feels rooted in an older design mindset. Short stages, constant pressure, and no time to breathe. It's unapologetically arcade first. One of Carnival's unique features is that at the start, you could choose between 3 different stages, each representing a different carnival attraction. Rickety Town is designed as a twisted toy town wrapped in warped holiday cheer. Snow-covered rooftops, oversized presents, festive decorations, and creepy toy enemies fill the screen. It takes something normally cheerful and flips it into something unsettling, perfectly matching Carnival's theme of turning fun attractions into nightmares. What makes this stage especially memorable is the contrast. Bright colors and holiday decorations clash with aggressive enemy behavior and constant on-screen threats. Enemies rush in from multiple directions, targets overlap in depth, and the visual noise forces you to stay sharp at all times. It's chaotic, but intentionally so. The sound design reinforces the unease. Distorted carnival music mixes with enemy taunts and exaggerated sound effects, giving Rickety Town an atmosphere that feels festive on the surface, but hostile underneath. Visually, Carnival pushes the arcade hardware hard. Large digitized sprites, exaggerated animations, and non-stop motion make the screen feel alive and overwhelming. It's the kind of stage that sticks in your memory long after you walk away from the cabinet. Rickety Town perfectly represents what Carnival does best. This wraps up our MAME light gun video. The goal of this video is to get your light guns up and running in MAME using MAME's built-in tools. No third-party software, no extra layers, just plug in, set the PIDs, and play. As always, questions or comments, drop them down below. This is RetroPython for LaunchBox. Until next time, happy gaming.